plot, and Folsom Development Site Plan, Atlas Renewables, Special Use Permit and Site Plan, and Sagebrook Associates minor subdivision. We'll begin with the Bailey public hearing. The public hearing procedures are as follows. The presentation will be made by the applicant for the proposed ground mount solar facility. And then the public will be offered an opportunity to speak. Those who want to speak should come before the microphone, state your name and address for the record, and these proceedings will be transcribed, and the applicant will then respond to any comments after tonight's meeting. The attorney will read the notice of the public hearing into the record, and then the board will make a decision on public hearing closing or being tabled until further notice.
Okay, notice of public hearing. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held by the planning board of the town of Brunswick at 7 p.m. on Thursday, October 6, 2022, at the Brunswick Town Hall, 336 Town Office Road, Brunswick, New York, 12180, to review a special use permit application submitted by Kevin Bailey to construct a small-scale ground-mounted solar collector facility on property located at 197 Bolson Road. Copies of the application and supporting documents are available at the Brunswick Town Hall and are available for public inspection during regular business hours. All interested persons will be heard in the public hearing. This was published in the Eastwood Press, placed on the town signboard, posted on the town website, and mailed to owners of properties within 300 feet of the project site.
Thank you. Is anyone here in support of the Bailey project? The applicant here?
I'm here. Funny thing, I thought I was going to meet Kevin here, and so he sent me his phone number. He said he can answer questions over the phone, and obviously I can answer questions, but you probably know more about it than I do.
We need your name and
No way. Hello.
Did you get the message?
Yes.
Okay.
Hold on. I gotta go. So what should I do now?
Well, this is for the privilege of the public. So if there's anyone here from the public who wishes to speak for or against the application, they can do so now.
Great.
Being that we have limited graphics, we can provide you with those graphics if someone has something to say, so that you can reference them.
And I can answer basic questions too.
we need your name and address.
My name is Richard Lynn, G-L-Y-N. I live on 197 Bolson Road.
Can you do a brief synopsis of what they're trying to do?
Yep. So on the south side of my house, I want to put 3 freestanding solar arrays. Each one will be have 12 solar panels, and they'll be on the south side of my property. So everybody in the north will be blocked by my house. And then those panels will be visible from the road, but not as close as the panel down the street is. And these 3 panels will supply me with electricity to plug the house and heat the house and whatever.
So you're the homeowner.
Yes.
Usually what we do is public will present questions, and then the next meeting, you and your installer can answer.
Okay.
You don't have to do it back and forth unless it's something simple.
Yeah, if it's something simple, I'd be happy to. Wherever the system is.
Thank you. We'll open the floor to the public.
Okay.
If the public has any comments for or against the application. And this is for a residential solar facility off Folsom Road. Hearing none, I'll ask the board if you have any questions for the discussion for the applicant. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll move the public hearing be closed.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So now that the public hearing is closed, we can move on to our regular agenda. And on that agenda, first would be Bailey's special use permit. I had notes, but I'm not following them right now. We had a meeting on September 16th. Did anyone have any changes or amendments to the meeting minutes from the September 15th meeting?
I'll make a motion to approve. There's no changes needed.
So,
I'll second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, for the Bailey special use permit. Give us- Any comments from the town engineer, the town attorney on this?
I reviewed the plan. I don't see any real issues from a technical standpoint. I had asked the applicant for some cut sheets on the equipment and provided them. I don't take any issue with what they're proposing for equipment. It's pretty straightforward as far as the installation and location. No conflicts with these well and septic up there on the United States. It seems to me that it's located in the best possible spot on this property.
Were there any comments from the board? My only comment was that the panels should be, the setback should be to the corner of the panel and not necessarily to the center of the facility.
Yeah, should be the edge of the panel.
Well, is there any issue regarding compliance with setbacks from the property line?
The issue.
Well, determining where you measure from, you've raised the issue about measuring the setback from the corner as opposed to the center of the facility. Is there any issue with the setback distance from the property line, depending on where you measure it, from the corner of the facility as opposed to the center?
Well, it says in the description that the solar array will be a minimum of 10 feet away from the property line. And on the map, he has a 20-foot mark. I'm assuming that's to the pole, but I wanted to be clear
my suggestion would be, let's get the building department, let's get Chuck in here, who will have reviewed that. That's really his
Okay.
determination. We'll make sure that that's clear in the record before we proceed.
Want me to go?
That would be a good idea.
So 5 feet, 25 feet.
Back there, but.
Rooming around camp, there's a setback question.
Yes, right.
On the ground mount solar application, the setback, and the application says 20 feet. And my question was, should we be clear that 20 feet is to the pole or to the edge of the panel? And on there,
Isn't the setback in an 40, 25 feet?
Well, if for a accessory structure, it's a hell of a lot more than that. I'll tell you exactly what it is, or if you want to just give me your book, Linda. And we're considering ground mount solar as an accessory structure.
Correct.
Yeah. $840 out there, 75 feet.
On the sideline?
From the sideline, 25. And the rear is 25. Neither one to remember, 75, 25, 25.
75 from the front.
From the front, 25 from the side, 25 from the rear.
He's on the other side of his house, so he's not 25 feet from the property line.
Yes.
Then you are suggesting that the gentleman needs a variance first. Is that correct?
Or move the array.
Or move the array? Those are two choices. Is the installer here?
Now, the landowner.
Unfortunately, it's not.
That's a bit of an issue.
Linda, currently the plan is the array is how far from the sideline? Right?
Showing 20. You don't have any problem moving 5 foot over, do you?
No.
All right. These obviously are not the permit application documents, so the permit application documents will have a little more detail on exactly where they're going to be sited. And you know now that it has to be 25 feet.
75 from the front.
Yep, and 75 from the front. If my satellite program didn't freeze up, I'd be able to get those numbers for the front, but
It's not close to the front.
No. I don't suspect there'll be an issue with the front setback.
Is your frontage on Bolson Road or Winfield?
Bolson.
No issue with the front lot?
I went to 75. I'm trying to get back onto my the satellite program. I don't understand how it can work better from home than it does here.
This is 126 feet.
Yeah, so you've got the 75. If you're 126 on that line,
This page. here.
yeah, so you're well past 75.
The front's good.
Yeah.
We just gotta move it over a little bit to the side. All right.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Any other discussion? Is there a motion? Oh, we didn't do this.
Right, so we'll confirm for the record that the special use permit application required the public hearing and was noticed and held tonight. There's no trigger for county planning review on this. It's adjacent to a town road. It's not proximity to a municipal boundary line. So procedurally, it is appropriately in front of the board for first the seeker determination and action on the special use permit.
Move an amendment declaration.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
And on the special use permit?
I'll make a motion to approve.
And I would suggest, subject to the condition, we'll make the record clear that the property owner, the applicant, has agreed on the record to shift the array 5 feet in what direction? North?
Actually, yeah, it's northwest. Northeast, I'm sorry.
Generally, in the northerly direction to come into compliance with the side lot line, so the condition should be subject to relocating the panels to comply with the 25-foot setback for side lot line.
From the front setback, you're 162 feet to the bush. And the panels are behind that bush, so.
Any other discussion? Is there a motion on the floor?
Andrew, a motion, we a second. I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
You're approved.
Thank you very much.
With conditions. Next on the agenda is Polson Development Site Plan. Applicant seeks to construct a two-story medical building on property located at 112 Chesney Avenue, Polson Development. Albany LLC is the applicant. So since our last meeting, we received some responses to the public hearing comments. And a copy of the graphic report was posted. And that was sent to the county.
Good evening. Greg Russell, Creighton Manning Engineering, representing Paulson Development. With me this evening, Rich Paulson in the back, and Eric Green from BPL. Just to go back and review a couple of things, Wayne had a couple of comments last month regarding adding riprap to the flared end section. That's been added to the plans. We had a stop sign at the driveway exit. That was a requirement in the traffic assessment report. We received approval from the county for the traffic assessment report with no comment.
There were a couple of comments.
What's a couple of minor
Yeah,
comments?
minor comments on the size of the culvert, signage during construction.
Correct.
Construction.
And we'll work that out with the I'm not sure at this point we need a 15-inch culvert. Everything kind of sheet flows off. There's no way to swale there. We'll work with the county. We had a site meeting on the 26th of September with Bill Bradley, BPL, and Volusia regarding the sewer. We have a path forward. We're going to relocate a portion of the sewer and tie it back into the existing sewer downstream below where there's issues with the existing sewer. We did submit a response to the public hearing comments. In that response, we have a proposal for the sidewalk issue, which we've discussed a lot in the past. If there's any questions on that, we can address those. That's all I have. I would respectfully request that the planning board this evening close seeker. I believe the only outstanding item from last month was the traffic study. And that obviously has been approved by the county. And I would also respectfully request that the board consider granting conditional final approval. Having said that, I'll answer any questions you may have.
Could you show us on the map where the sewer work would occur?
Yes. I can bring it closer if necessary, but right now, the existing sewer comes from the apartments, comes down here to here, and then goes to Route 7. What we're proposing to do is to put a new sewer in here, new manhole, new sewer here, with a doghouse manhole here, back into the existing sewer. Below where, it's about 114 feet or so that the video shows is not acceptable. So we're gonna bypass that with new sewer. And then we'll bring the 6-inch sewer from the facility into this new manhole.
Is that a huge line?
Yeah, Jeff.
Currently, that's a private sewer,
That's correct.
not currently part of the public sewer line.
That's correct.
Is it gonna remain private, or is the town build, take over a portion of that?
Bill will take over that portion. From the new sewer here, and then all the way there'll be easements required, the dedication to the town. Which will be taken care of as well.
You're in the sewer district.
Yes. No
Stay
extension
in the
required.
sewer district.
Right.
That's your lot there,
Our lot-
picture,
our lot's over here.
your lot's over there.
So the sewer line there runs through Magnolia property.
Yes, it does. So, this is our sewer coming here, that's the manhole on project property, and that, here we go, it's the new manhole.
Apartments goes through your lot?
No, they don't. Their apartments are down here.
That's on the other line that has issues.
Correct. So it's easier to show it this way. So the apartment sewer, this is the apartment road, Brunswick Plaza's here. This is their sewer now, comes here and goes through Route 7. So the proposal is we will build new sewer here, tie it back in here, and the town would take over this portion through Route 7. This portion going towards the apartments would stay private.
And the red line going that way is yours,
That would be ours, yes.
then that would be public.
That would be permanent.
With an easement.
But yeah, we'll need actually we'll need, it's a little complicated. The town will need an easement from NIGRO in order to take over the property. We will need a little easement, it appears, based on ultimate location of this from NIGRO. And we'll also need an easement from Tri-Cities because they own the right of way here. So there'll be 3 easements required. But everybody is on board with what we're trying to do.
Do you have any correspondence to that effect?
I do not.
Any discussion of the response to comments by the board? Or the traffic assessment?
Yeah, I reviewed the traffic study. I don't have any objections to their conclusions about impact additional traffic or circumstances. Find the recommendations to be reasonable.
He answered the question about the sidewalks. I'm happy with that.
First, comments?
I do. So Wayne asked a moment ago, was there anything in writing regarding that whole discussion on the sewer work, the upgrade easements? It sounds like the necessary component of the project is doing work over third-party properties.
Correct.
We really do need, as the board, some kind of writing from those third-party owners indicating they consent to that work. Certainly before there's any action, I would not recommend to the board that they proceed on any action on the site plan, subject to condition, where the condition is dependent on consent from the third-party owner, beyond your control. And certainly, I think Wayne should coordinate with the water department, with Mr. Bradley, to make sure we fully understand all that, so we can appropriately condition once third-party consents are in, so we understand what's being dedicated, what is the town taking over, what easements required from what parties, and just make that clear. I would suggest, though, that certainly subject to Wayne's comment, that's more addressing action on the site plan as opposed to secret conditions.
Did you have any further comments about the secret?
Well, I reviewed the EAF and I had a couple of minor comments back. We did address those. And then the other issues you see, as far as any measurable impact.
No.
Did the board declare lead agency on this, Andy?
I believe we did. We did coordinate lead agency. My recollection, we can confirm on the record that planning board will act as lead agency under seeker after a coordinated review.
Are they still in front of the zoning board of appeals?
Correct.
Variance?
On the height variance, correct.
So we couldn't act on site plan until that was completed anyway, correct?
That has been the procedure of this board. If there's a necessary variance, that variance be obtained and then the site plan's acted on. Having said that, the zoning board can't move forward on the area variance until this board makes a secret determination. Why I referenced earlier that the issue of the third-party consents really is a site plan issue and would not prohibit the board from entertaining secret.
Hearing all that discussion, does anyone want to make a motion regarding secret on the Folsom site plan application?
I'll make the motion. Is there any, let me get that there before we follow through on that.
And you see, you reviewed the EAF, you reviewed the technical reports. Any issues you raised have been adequately addressed?
Yeah, I mean, there's impacts from stormwater, they're mitigated through post-construction facilities. There's minor impacts from traffic, because we are adding traffic to Chesney Avenue. It's mitigated through the items that the county had asked for. So I don't see any other issues besides that. It's zoned commercial, it's
Right. And Kevin, there certainly will still be consideration of conditions attached to any action on the site plan.
Okay.
So this is really limited to potential significant adverse environmental effects.
I'll make a motion about conditions.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Who seconded that?
So, we'll put you on the agenda for our first November meeting. Oh.
Right, I
We
will
have a
note,
meeting on the 20th.
correct, and the zoning board's meeting on the 17th, so it might be appropriate to at least tentatively place them on your October 20th agenda. We would appreciate that.
Thank you.
And do you want easement language to go to you? And
Well, the actual easement language,
Or
it can
some-
hold, really what we're looking for is written confirmation from the third-party property owners consenting to the sewer work.
And then we can deal with the language. of
We can deal with the language.
Various
There,
businesses.
we can be conditions attached to it. We really do need the third-party owner consents and give Wayne a chance to coordinate with Bill. Make sure we fully understand that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next on the agenda is Atlas Renewables, North Troy Solar, special use permit and site plan. The applicant seeks to construct a commercial solar electric facility on property located off Oakwood Avenue and Farrell Road. Atlas Renewables LLC.
Good evening, standing in for Louis Torn, our partner. And been at this for some time. We're seeking special use permit site plan review. I believe last time we met, we were discussing the possibility of seeker review, planning board declaring lead agency, and then whether would respectfully request to do that this evening. And also, if it's appropriate, would request for final approval conditioned on the ZBA approving our area variance for the poles for the interconnection, the overhead poles.
Wayne, are you satisfied with the application of the seeker? Step 2.
I'd like Andy to go through kind of the lead agency coordination response from DEC first.
Sure. So as the board will recall, we did circulate a secret lead agency coordination notice. The involved agencies on the application are this planning board, the zoning board of appeals, the area variance, and the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. We did receive back a response from DEC dated September 28th on the lead agency coordination request. DEC did indicate that it had no objection to this planning board serving as lead agency. As it generally does, DEC did identify potential permits that are required on this. Here it includes obviously the compliance with the general permit for stormwater discharges from construction activity. I'm presuming a full Section 401 water quality certification in conjunction with wetland impact point. Yeah, it may impact federally regulated wetlands.
If they get into any federal regulated wetlands.
And DEC also provided some additional comments that the site, part of the work will be through the listed hazardous waste site, the pole installation, and identifies a hotline in the event any issue is encountered while doing that work within the regulated hazardous waste site. He commented that the project appears to be located within an area of potential historic or archaeological significance. Wayne, can you address
Yeah,
that?
that was identified in the EAF. The applicant did do a phase 1A, 1B archaeological study. They hired a firm to go out and do some testing, and they didn't find anything. They had submitted that report to PRHP, OPRHP, agreed with the report and determined that there will be no no effect on archaeological resources. So do your due diligence for sure on that.
And the last thing that indicated, there's no identified habitat or endangered species on the site. The department routinely identifies the northern long-eared bat, potential species of concern, limiting the tree cutting time. So those comments were noted on DEC's response, but again, the important part is that the agency did not object to the board serving as lead agency. So the first order of business would be someone making a motion to declare the planning board lead agency for the review of this application.
I'll make a motion to declare planning board lead agency.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Want to proceed with stepping through the secret?
Yes, I took the liberty of filling out the part 2 of the full environmental assessment form, which is identification of potential project impacts on behalf of the board. We'll step through each of the items. Feel free to interrupt me to discuss as we go along. Starting on page 1 of the part 2. Evaluating the impact on land, I did check off that, yes, there will be some impact based on the physical operation of land surface. And we'll be putting solar panels in an area that didn't have solar panels before. However, as I've indicated, each of the items under this first item are no to small impact. Basically, they'll be clearing trees, removing stumps. However, they're not doing any grading. Solar panels will be installed with the soil anchors. They're not going to be putting permanent foundations in, other than pad for the equipment, and they'll be providing a driveway access road into the site. Any questions on that? Page 2, impact on geological features, no. Section 3, impacts on surface water. The proposed action may affect one or more wetlands or other surface water bodies. There are wetlands existing on the site. The applicant has taken measures to avoid the federal jurisdictional wetlands that are on site. They have moved all their facilities outside of those areas, which essentially results in no or very small impacts. So anybody have a question on that? Moving along, number 4, impact on groundwater. I've indicated that the proposed action will not result in any new or additional use of groundwater, or has no potential to introduce contaminants to groundwater. Number 5 on page 3, impact on flooding. The proposed action will not result in development on land subject to flooding. The area is not in the flood zone, the floodplain. Page number 4, item number 6, impacts on air. The proposed action will not include a state-regulated air emission source. Number 7, impacts on plants and animals. The proposed action may result in a loss of flora or fauna. Essentially, there will be cutting some trees for a portion of the property to install the solar panels. As far as the entire site, it's a fairly small area compared to the rest of the site. We could say that would be a small impact. They will be putting fencing around the site, however, it's such that animals still be able to transverse the site. Kind of a pretty open mesh wire fence. And no rare, threatened, or endangered species were identified. As indicated by DEC, they would like them to limit cutting trees between November and March. Or after March, right? They have to cut out between November and March. Does anybody have any question on that? Moving along, page 5, impact on agricultural resources. It's not an ag district. It's not currently ag land, so my bet is no. Page 6, item number 9, impact on aesthetic resources. The land use of the proposed action are obviously different from or in sharp contrast to current land use patterns. Putting a solar field that was not one before. They did do a visual assessment. The visual assessment does indicate that the solar panels are screened by existing vegetation at the visual viewpoints. Does anybody have a question or comment on that? Number 10, impact on historic and archaeological resources. Proposed action may occur in or adjacent to a historic or archaeological resource. The answer with that was yes. We did discuss this based on the comments made by DEC. They did do a phase 1A, 1B cultural resource archaeological survey. They didn't find anything, and it was cleared by SHPO. Any questions on that? Moving along. Page 7, part 11, impact on open space and recreation. Does not impact existing recreational opportunities in that area. Number 12, impact on critical environmental areas. There are no critical environmental areas in Franklin County, so that's no. Number 13 on page 8, impact on transportation. Proposed action will not result in any change to existing transportation systems. I mark that as a no. Impact on energy. The proposed action may cause an increase in any form of energy it's actually creating energy, not using it. So answer no to that question. Number 15, impact on noise, odor, and light. I believe it did come up during public hearing about the noise from the inverters, right? And that they, as long as the sun's not shining on them, they're not humming. The decibel level is almost nil off to the property line, so I want that as a no. Any questions on that? Moving along on page 9, impact on human health. Proposed action won't have an impact on human health from exposure to new existing sources of contaminants. Page 10, on number 17, consistency of community plans. It is a allowed use by special permit. So I mark that as no. Number 18, consistency with community character. The proposed project is inconsistent with existing community character. I checked yes on that because it is in a light industrial zone. However, there's going to be solar panels there, which is not consistent with existing community character. Again, they've shown that it will be screened from the residential areas nearby. I would consider that a small impact. Do you have any comments or questions on that? We're good with that?
Could we go back to 16?
No. Number 16,
Yes, please.
impact on human health.
Item J.
Well, that hazardous waste site has been inactivated. I think we had a similar kind of discussion with Maurizio subdivision.
We did.
Yeah. Because the site is inactive, we determined that based on the information that we gleaned from how that site was reviewed and tested by UEC.
Yeah, and
All that?
and I would add here that, certainly the point raised by Wayne that this is an inactive site. Clearly, the site at issue here has been analyzed by the department. They did raise in their response letter to lead agency coordination the issue of potential excavation within the site, gave information on how to handle that if anything is encountered. So it's been identified. The section here is impact on human health. And so I think given that the site has been analyzed by the department and the response to the lead agency coordination notice itself did not raise any concern regarding the action impact on human health, I think that you could conclude here that the answer is probably no. Even if the answer to the question is yes, a potential impact, the record would certainly support a consideration that it's either no or small impact. So that's up to the board.
It's up to the board how you want to answer this question.
I'm fine with your
I
explanation.
provide this as a courtesy to the board.
I'm taking no exception to the way it's answered now that I understand the explanation. Thank you.
Any further discussion on part 2? You good? Can we step through the part 3 again?
Is that a request for me to do that?
No. Did you want me to do it? I can do it.
No, I'm happy to. So based on the Wayne's review of part 2, the part 3 of the full EAF is the determination that the lead agency makes concerning potential significant adverse environmental impacts. Based on the responses that you discussed in part 2, that would give rise and support the adoption of a negative declaration that it's not deemed to be, the action is not deemed to have any significant adverse environmental impacts. The part 3 in front of you that Wayne's prepared in draft does identify the seeker status of the project as unlisted. This is an unlisted action. It identifies part 1, 2, and 3 as having been completed. and is filled out to adopt a seeker negative declaration that would conclude the seeker review. What has also been prepared is an exhibit for part 3 to adopt a negative declaration that does go through the description of the action and some of the past procedure. Very importantly, it identifies the documents creating the record in support of the seeker determination. Those are listed on page 2. Again, I'll note for the record here, it does indicate that the SHPO is signed off on a historic or archaeological significance. It does also confirm that this has been referred to the county as it's within the requisite distance from the county highway, and we've received those comments back from the county. And this does generally discuss and reach conclusions regarding the part 2 potential impacts that Wayne reviewed with you, concluding that it's appropriate for the adoption of the negative declaration. So that is in front of you for consideration to adopt the seeker negative declaration. That would be part 3 of the form.
Is there any discussion by the board members? Anyone like to make a seeker motion?
I'll make the motion. Do we need to put this exhibit as a,
Yes. So in the event that the board does adopt the negative declaration that's been moved, the full seeker record here would be the part 1, 2, and 3. I'll have our acting chair, if approved, sign part 3. It will include the narrative, the appendix. And I'll note for you on the part 3 itself, on the first page, there's that section that says reasons supporting this determination. Wayne has added C Exhibit A attached, so it will become part of part 3.
So we have a motion on the table for a negative declaration under seeker with parts 1, 2, and 3 of the full environmental assessment. As a condition. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
aye,
And at this point, you have your application still before the zoning board of appeals, which will occur on October 17th is scheduled to appear there, and our next meeting is on October 20th. So unless there's any other discussion by the board, I recommend that we schedule you for the 20th meeting. Or, so that we understand what the zoning board of appeals has to say about your application before we vote on something.
Thank you very much.
Next on the agenda is Sagebrook. So it's a minor subdivision, the applicant seeks a minor subdivision approval to create 3 new building lots on property located at 48 Spring Landing Boulevard. Sagebrook Association.
Good evening. My engineer, Matt Bond, wasn't able to be here tonight, mainly because I can't afford it.
Could we have your name just for the record?
He had some personal items that he had to take care of, so we asked him to come forth tonight.
Could you just give us your name for the record on the?
Yeah, my name is Kevin Cronow. I'm the owner of this property and the CEO and president of Sagebrook. It's, in starting this project, it's very satisfying to drive through Spring Landing and see what a great job the people have done in maturing that community. It looks great, and we hope that this project will continue that. I think one of the main issues that was involved in this project before was the encumbrance of a small portion of driveway of the neighbors of Kenneth and Jennifer Colwell. And I had my attorney prepare an affidavit that they both signed, and you should have copies of that. They agreed that in the future, if there was any discrepancy of myself or any future owner, that they would gladly move that driveway off that little bit of the property. So you should have that affidavit in your possession. There is, if you look at a plan, there is approximately over 20 feet of space for each proposed driveway. So that would certainly suffice for whatever requirement the board has for private driveways. I don't know if there's any other questions or issues that the board had about it that I could answer. I guess what we're looking for is to set a date for public hearing, so we can move on.
Wayne, did you have a comment?
I do. You know, it would be appropriate for Andy talking about that legal document that you provided to the board first, or we can go
Sure.
over some other issues. I think they're all kind of tied in together.
They are, and I'll start with this. So Mr. Cronow said it was an affidavit that stated if there was a problem with the driveway, that the neighbor would remove it. And I appreciate you had your attorney draw this up.
Sure.
But this is something that's titled an encroachment agreement. And the terms of which, at least the way I review it, has provided the neighbor with what's called a revocable license. And what a revocable license is an interest in real property. And so I read this agreement to actually provide the neighbor now with a written agreement evidencing an interest in your real property. It doesn't say that the neighbor will remove the driveway. It says the neighbor has you've granted the neighbor a revocable license to have the driveway in its current location.
Okay, yes, I understand.
That's something different than saying the neighbor will remove it.
Right.
So it attempts to address that issue of making sure we have a subdivision plat that on its face is complete, but it's showing a neighbor having its driveway located on the project site. This document, the way I read it, does provide the neighbor with, until you revoke the license,
Right.
has the legal right to maintain his driveway across your property.
Right. I have no problem with that at this point.
Now, I understand that, but the issue was having a subdivision plat showing what we've been calling the encroachment. We wanted to make sure that, number one, the neighbor didn't make any claim to your land, that I own it and I can keep my driveway there. That would have been on one extreme. The other extreme would have been saying, get your driveway off my land,
Yeah.
so I can move forward with the board. This is somewhere in the middle. And license, as I said, is identified as an interest in real property, and it would seem by this agreement, you've granted your neighbor that interest in your real property for the driveway location. Whether that can be addressed through a plat note, as I sit here, I'm not sure.
Well, it raises another question as to, that driveway to lot one. Once you subdivide this property and sell those lots, it no longer becomes your issue.
That what?
It's not your issue anymore once you sell the lot, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. So we're showing a driveway to lot one that runs over the end of the driveway to the adjacent property.
Well, the driveway location for number one, I think, was after discussion and having National Grid go out and look at the site as to where the main power will be brought up. The driveway to lot one will really be off of the driveway, which also goes to lot two, because it's flatter up at the top of that curve. Okay? So to be honest with you, I don't know why that particular driveway there, it isn't practical because of the grade.
I'm wondering if we should show a shared common driveway or private road on the plat instead of showing three driveways, if that's not how you're going to do it.
Well, my intent would be to, before the lots are sold, is to actually, well, there is an existing road there now, that you saw, going, which is a gravel base. And I would expand on that and bring that up to the point at which all of those driveways separate, with the hope that most people with common sense would use that up to that point. And that could be fairly wide, I mean, that could be 20 feet wide, okay? It's definitely.
We'll get into what the width of that has to be. We'll get into what the width of that has to be.
Okay.
Here as we go along.
Sure,
Yeah.
okay. But I mean, there's certainly adequate space there to provide an adequate.
Oh, there is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there, would the piece that's encroaching, if you put a lot line adjustment and gave it to the neighbor, is there enough room for three driveways there?
Well, we have to have 15-foot frontage for each lot. That's why it's shown.
15, right?
Correct.
So 45-foot overall for all three driveways.
Right. So how much is there?
It's tough to judge with that, or
I guess my point would be that the building was over that lot line. I can see the concern, okay? But we're talking about a 3 feet of blacktop just over the corner of the project.
I understand.
I got neighbors who got fences between two houses that are, I mean, you could throw eggs between the windows.
I believe.
And they had to put the fence up because they couldn't get along.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't think we want to start down the road where we got a problem before we get neighbors.
Well, like I said, there is room, if it became an issue, they have enough room to just simply move that off that property, which they basically, when I discussed that, they had no problem, which is what we thought we were saying.
But they even maintain across the line, they mow the grass, they have a tree planted there. I mean, it's more than just a driveway.
Yeah, it
They
is.
have
But
their
that's not-
landscaping, their lawn. I just want to really protect you.
In discussing that with them, I mentioned to them at this point, if we constructed a more suitable driveway in there, that those trees would not be disturbed in any way. And they realize that they're not on their property. They understand that, okay? So, I just explained to them that they're nice. I mean, I think it would add to the site to leave it there, okay? So,
Right, but eventually that's not somebody else, gonna be somebody else's property. That's all.
That's right.
Yeah,
And they know that.
but not the people who are buying the house yet, because it hasn't been approved subdivision.
Well, the people who are buying that property would know that also. I mean, it's not like they're claiming that they own that land because they've been there for so many years.
I know.
So, and that's really a civil issue between myself and the people that are living there and between a future owner and them. That's more of a civil issue than it is a planning board issue, in my opinion. My attorney said so as well. But, be that as it may, we're just trying to move forward with this.
And we're not trying to hold you up, we just want to make sure that you're going to approve something that has some roots.
I understand that.
Right, and we'll make it clear, this issue arose because your engineer submitted a subdivision plat
Right.
that showed an encroachment, that
Right.
showed a driveway on your neighbor's property
Right.
going across your land,
Right.
impacting your proposed subdivision.
Right.
The issue was created by the submission.
Right.
It is what it is in the field, okay? This is a concern that I have, let's be blunt about this, that the planning board act on a plat that shows that location of a driveway going across your property, and whether it was approvable in that form.
Well, I think other plats, not necessarily this town, but in other towns, have approved those things, even with buildings out there. with the-
Well, I
with the
understand that,
stipulation
and any
at the
town
time.
can do what it chooses to do.
Right.
My counsel to this board
Right.
is, if there is an identified impact to your proposal, with a very narrow net to get 3 lots in, and one of these is shown to be impacted by a driveway from an adjoining lot, that needs to be addressed, because the last thing any municipality wants is an argument, well, the planning board stamped and approved that, then I must have the right to keep it there. That will not happen. My counsel to this board is not to act on a plat that shows an encroachment on someone's land. This town has addressed a similar situation in the past at the zoning board on property along Hoosick Road, and it got fairly difficult and litigious between the neighbors. And that is something that I'll counsel the board, get this cleaned up before you act on the plat. The efforts to have this addressed through, whether it be an affidavit or an agreement saying that the driveway will be removed, was not accomplished, in my opinion, through this. You actually gave your neighbor a legal right to maintain that driveway until you revoke it. And I don't know,
Well, and I can revoke it, right? I mean, I can revoke that at any time. I could go down there tomorrow because they signed that agreement and say, move your driveway. So what's the issue?
well, that's not been done. To the contrary, what we've heard is, I'd like them to be able to keep it there and let me build one shared driveway.
Right.
This is not to be problematic. Wayne's correct.
Right.
We just want a plat that's an approvable form in front of the board. And Wayne, your suggestion earlier, maybe we just show one shared driveway. We need to ensure that there is adequate legal room for 3 driveways to 3 lots in the event there is a neighbor dispute in the future. What you actually build in the field, what you submit to the building department or to the town highway department, that's a separate matter. This board is dealing with the subdivision plat that presumably will then be stamped and signed and recorded in the county clerk's office.
Which has a solution. Which has a solution if it becomes an issue, that I can revoke it. So it's not like, and like I said, I think it's more of an issue between me and them and a future owner and them than it is the planning board, because if it becomes an issue, it can be revoked.
It's,
So what's
the
the
planning
problem?
board can choose to follow my counsel or not.
Well, I just.
I don't see what you presented to the board as addressing the driveway issue. You've granted your neighbor now a legal right to maintain the driveway until it's revoked.
Right.
let's paint a scenario. You don't revoke this. You
Right.
put in one common driveway.
Right.
You sell the 3 lots, you're
Right.
gone.
Right.
Do the 3 lot owners succeed to the ability to say, remove the driveway? Did your lawyer explain that issue to you?
Why would other owners that aren't involved there want that done?
Because there erupts a dispute in the future, the very issue the board's concerned about.
Well, the dispute, I think, well, you know more than I do about this, obviously, from a legal perspective.
Well-
I'm not an attorney.
And the other thing is that this was clearly just an agreement. It doesn't look like it was drawn up in a form that was ever intended to be recorded in the county clerk's office. You know, not to be too crazy, but the signatures were acknowledged.
Well,
I get it. I get it. And whether this is adequate to put down into a plat note that would have to be drafted to make it clear
right,
so that anyone looking in the records in the county clerk's office could understand this mess
right.
and figure out the legal rights going forward. Like, maybe your attorney can propose a plat note to adequately address these concerns, and I'm happy to review that.
Well, I guess that would be my next question, is what would be satisfactory from your perspective?
You
to
know,
solve
this
the problem?
always comes up, Kevin, it always comes up, and we're not gonna draft your project. We've identified the issue of this driveway, it's gotta get addressed, something gets submitted, we review it, and whether it's adequate or not, we'll comment on it. We're not gonna draft the plat note for the applicant.
Andy, I'm not asking you to draft, I'm asking you to give me direction as to what needs to be drafted.
I'm hesitant to do that, Kevin, and I'm gonna tell you why. You called me in my office,
Right.
correct?
Right,
And we discussed this,
right, exactly,
right?
exactly.
And if we portray that, tell me if I'm incorrect. The discussion was, we want to make sure that the neighbor's not making a claim
Right,
to your property
that's correct.
and that they will remove the driveway. What was submitted was a encroachment agreement that provided your adjacent neighbor a legal interest in your property called a license.
Right,
That's not what we discussed. Did the term license ever come up in our discussion?
well, again, I'm not an attorney, okay, and I assume, which, you know what happens when you assume. But I assume that this particular thing, because I still have the right to get that removed, or a future owner has the right to get that removed, that it solves the problem.
Well, this certainly gives you the right to remove it. Absent. It's a fair legal question as to whether your successors in interest, even though the document says it without it being recorded, could do so. How would your successors in interest ever have notice of this? It's not part of the chain of title. This is why these are not easy issues.
I
And I'm
understand.
hesitant to, at this point, say, this is what you need to do. Let your attorney address this. If your attorney has any question, have him or her certainly call me,
Okay,
but that would be fine.
okay.
But
Well, that.
I
that
continue
answers
to have
my
legal
question.
concerns
That answers
about
my
this.
question. If I can have my attorney call you and come to some agreement as to what would be satisfactory to the board. we
And
can
quite
do that.
frankly, I'm going to include Wayne in those discussions.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. I have no problem there. I just need some direction, you know, how to solve the problem that you're discussing. Fair?
Anything else, Wayne? Well, fair or not, generally applicants come in front of the board, and it's the applicant's responsibility to address comments and figure out how to get it done, not to ask the board, how do I fix this? But that's okay. I get it. That's okay.
The other thing I wanted to add was that there's improvements across the property line besides just the driveway, you know.
What are you referring to?
Well, their lawn, and they mow the lawn, and they're not, it's not even on their property.
Oh,
So what if lot one wants to put a driveway in, and they just go through and cut through their lawn and across the end of their driveway?
what you can do?
Which they could do. But why would we approve something that has that potential? You know what I mean?
Well, you-
I just,
I guess my answer to that would simply be, I don't think the board can approve something that just may have future potential between two particular properties. That has nothing to do with this project, okay? Those issues are between the two people involved, not the planning board.
And I'm just saying that any kind of encroachment is more than just a drive. That's all, that's the only point I'm trying to make. There's any legal document that you create to remedy the situation should include more than just the driveway. Should include any other improvements across the property.
No, I
That's
don't
all.
agree with it. I don't agree with it.
Why?
Because I just don't think, because they went out and did that, even though it wasn't their land, and now they have to claim.
Yeah, but the owner of lot one has every right to go down and put a fence right along their property line, right through their lawn. Is that fair to the Caldwells? It's not.
But that's not a planning board issue. It's not. I mean, I don't think it's a planning board issue to anticipate that there could be a problem between two people, which has civil action.
Yeah, but the planning board shouldn't approve something that has the potential to be,
Cost somebody a lot of money
yeah.
to fix. To buy a lot, you ought to be able to put a septic and a house on it without having to litigate with the neighbor whether, it would cost thousands of dollars if they took it to court. Just to,
What's to prevent that owner from suing the town for approving,
I don't think so. Well,
Anybody
I
can
guess
sue anybody for anything.
that's a possibility, but I think that's a civil issue. I don't think it's
I just think it should be cleaned up.
So I could go down there and say, look, I want you to move the driveway, then that would solve the whole problem, right? Yeah, well, and I can do that. It's not that much involved, I'll move it forward. Just a small piece of blacktop here, would go on heads over heels over this.
Well, if that's the case, then submit a plat that shows the driveway relocated. Let's get Caldwell's consent to that construction on their land, and then you can submit a plat that doesn't indicate any encroachment whatsoever.
Well, that's something we can discuss if that's what's necessary, but I hate to do that to them because I don't want to disturb it, really. It's just.
well, we go back to the, lot line adjustment, leave it to them. If you got enough room for 3 driveways in the balance, you don't have to do it. But I can't tell from this map how room there is, how much room there is there.
You mean in terms of where the driveway is?
You need
Along that
40
arc, do you have 45
You
feet?
need 45 feet from the edge of the driveway to the next property line. I don't know,
It's hard to tell.
it's hard to tell.
Correct me if I'm wrong, a driveway could be right next to a property line, correct? There's no setback for a driveway,
That's correct.
okay? So if that's the case, I'm confused as to what your issue is.
The town says you have to have 15 feet frontage on a town public road.
Right.
You got 3 driveways, that's 45 feet.
No, there's 60,
Right now, you have 60 feet.
there's 60 feet there.
Well, you may be able to do a lot line adjustment without ripping up the blacktop. Take the balance of the land and put 3 driveways in, right?
Yeah, so what you're saying is if we adjust the plat, this may be the solution. If we adjust the plat to come over so that their driveway is not on my property, and there's still enough room for the 3 driveways, that solves the problem. Is that correct?
Sure. That's
Yeah.
an option. As long as you can show 15-foot of frontage for 3 lots and still get that driveway, in,
I can do that.
you still have to, adjust the lot line.
So that seems to be the
However
obvious
way you need to do
solution,
that.
right? For everybody is that I can go back and have this plat adjusted to just include that their driveway is out of my property and still maintain the amount of land necessary for the 3 driveways.
That's one
That's
option.
what we'll do.
No,
That's an option. There's other options on the table.
Yeah, I mean, you could show one driveway and 15-foot of frontage for 3 lots.
Right.
But no, the plat will show 3 lots.
All three driveways. Right?
Correct. Will show 3 lots, each with at minimum of 15 feet of frontage.
Right.
With to put in a driveway. I think the plat itself should show 1 shared driveway.
Okay, we can do that.
Is that all right?
What, having the plat without the proposed?
No.
house or driveway
If he
location?
moves the line over and there's
I thought we've done that before. Haven't we?
45 feet left, then you could put 3 driveways.
That's, the minimum of 15 foot of frontage on an approved public road is the requirement of the town law.
Right.
So if you can show you've got that for the lot, then it's a legal building lot. And if there's enough, the
Or
lot line adjustment would just be Kevin, because he owns the property
Right.
that you transfer and title to the neighbor, and it could get cleaned up
I
that way.
think that would be the easiest solution, as long as we're all on the same page here. That's all.
Or if you want to continue what was discussed earlier, you can certainly have your attorney suggest a plat note that I'm happy to review.
Okay,
There's
well,
there's
we can look at
options.
that option and then maybe figure out the best route to go. Okay, that seems reasonable.
Now, I hate to raise this issue, but I must.
Then don't.
With Wayne, the length of the driveway in relation to the town's driveway requirements. These are always difficult when you've got the minimum frontage.
Right. Have that in front of me, and now I'm going to find it.
The issue comes up simply because of the length of one or more of these driveways. And
I printed off so much stuff today. As I recall, I can't find it, is that if your driveway is over 150 feet long, it now becomes a private road. And the requirements for a private road is that the driveway has to be 16 feet wide with 3-foot shoulders.
16 plus the 3 footers inclusive.
No, 16 feet plus 3 feet on either side. Doesn't have to be a paved shoulder. It has to be a discernible shoulder. Shoulder grade 3 feet outside the paved.
That exceeds the state requirements, doesn't it? The state requirements don't require that much. I don't think.
The state really doesn't have it.
Oh, they have, yeah, fire access road is what they
Yeah,
have.
they don't really have a driveway width minimum, but maybe for a permit on a state road. That's the town specifications.
So
That eliminates those turnouts, you wouldn't need those, you got 16-foot driveway, 3 foot shoulders.
Let me ask you this, if you had the turn-offs, then the driveway be that long?
The turnouts are for fire apparatus, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And depending on after you get over 150 feet, they
To do the turn-offs.
They kick in
that's
at-
required.
Well, it wouldn't meet the requirements of the town's specifications. I'm not sure I could waive it.
I think we should look at that issue regarding the driveway and private road standards in relation to consistency with the town, New York State town law on buildable lot in 15 feet of frontage. I will note for the board that 15 feet of frontage under the New York State town law is expressly predicated on the state deeming that 15 feet is adequate for emergency access. How that relates to the town private road specifications, that's something Wayne and I should look at. The issue only arises just because of the length of one or more of these driveways. If they're less than 150 feet, it'd be a non-issue.
I guess my reasonable understanding was that as long as there's turnoffs every so many feet, for emergency access.
Yeah, that is what your engineer was raising. We did raise the town has, because of the length of the driveway, private road specification requirements, and that's what Wayne provided today.
I think even a driveway is 12 feet with 3-foot shoulders, according to the specs.
I do want to review that with you in relation to the buildable lot standard.
Do the shoulders have to be on the parcel, or could they be shared?
I think we need to talk about that too.
Yeah. That's a fair question.
I'm sorry, I
I don't know the
hear
answer.
what was that?
Well, I was just asking if the shoulders could be shared between driveways.
Oh, okay.
It's a good question.
I guess, off the top of my head, I would have appreciated having this addressed a lot sooner than now. It's nice. So this could have been rectified.
We address questions as they come up.
Yeah.
Can't address something we don't have questions.
Well, this issue was there from the beginning. Okay, so I will have, my attorney check with you, Andy, and then see if we can work out something that way, or we can talk about adjusting the long run. Okay?
Yeah, that's right.
And then you and I can discuss further this other driveway issue.
I want to talk to Andy
Well,
first about,
Why don't you do that, and then
Yeah.
we can
We can talk
converse
about
on
it.
what the solutions might be. Okay? Good. Any other questions?
on a positive note, I went out and looked at the site. Has really good drainage. Went out there.
Thank you.
Yeah, residential driveway, 12-foot travel, 3-foot wide shoulder on each side. Private road, if it's over 150 feet, shall be a minimum of 16 feet wide with 3-foot shoulders on each side.
It's the dreaded two-sided.
What's the difference between a private road and a private
The
road?
length,
Just the length determines the difference?
Yep.
Okay.
if it's over 150 feet, it's a road. That is, the town of Brunswick recommended standards for residential driveways and private roads.
You have a rough idea how long the longest driveway is that's there?
I don't, without, scaling it off
Pretty long.
like I said, we would certainly be able to put even 1 or 2 poles wherever necessary for any emergency vehicles. We have plenty of room to do that.
I know he comes up with these 400 or 500 foot driveways. Need certain specs, right?
For
Well, that's fire.
fire access road, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is not, in the residential book, this is considered just a residential driveway, but these parameters have to be put in for the fire safety, for the ability to pass one truck tie to the other. Because of being outside of the,
So anyway, I looked at the site, it has good drainage, I went out there after the rain, there's no erosion, drains really well. The road that's there now is in really good shape, that road right all the way up from lot 3. There's already been clearing done for those lots, it doesn't appear you're gonna have to do any clearing, maybe some minimal clearing on lot 1. But really, it's wide open on lot 2 and 3. I would ask that somehow we stipulate that the existing vegetation and trees and the steep slopes be maintained. We don't want somebody to go in there and
Sure.
start clear cutting that, or then we're gonna have problems. Even though it's a pretty stable site with Class A E soils.
Right.
The slopes are pretty steep coming down off their property.
I mean, that could certainly be addressed in a deed restriction, you know,
Well, we talked about that, I mean, yeah.
as far as those steeper slopes being vegetated.
There's more than 1 acre, they did do a soil erosion sediment control plan. As far as I'm concerned, I would say the SWIP is complete and approvable.
No detention ponds, or
No,
if they pave the driveways, is that,
still less than 5 acres.
it wouldn't change the detention pond?
And I think the other stipulation is 25% impervious area, but that's, we'll never get there. The way the drainage patterns are, it's not running back into the existing Spring Landing Boulevard until you get really down towards the end, the beginning of the driveways.
Yeah, I've never seen anybody do.
The drainage in this whole development is like, amazing, because it's gravel bank.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know it's, could be being, part of a greater plan, but this has been built out for so long, and established that, I think it's fair to say that we can do this with a basic SWIP and erosion sediment control plan.
I think to start, I was over 25 years.
Yeah. That's all I got.
It's enough. So as far as getting these things taken care of, can we set a public hearing, or one of these things are taken care of beforehand?
Certainly, the way this board has acted is that the approach would be to, let's get them addressed over the next 2 weeks. Presumably put you on the agenda for the 20th and then set the public hearing.
Okay.
At that time,
Okay.
just to make sure that the plat's complete.
All right. Any other questions, sir? Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Next time, we're going to do business.
One new business, Naples Court. And the surveyor, Mr. Metzger, has toughed it out for close to 2 hours.
I did not bring a plan with me. I was computer work on that out the office. Able to print it, but I can pull one in my head. Fred Metzger here for Mrs. Murray this evening regarding subdivision waiver. Notice it over at 10 Naples Court. We purchased lots 101, 102, and 103 several years ago. Merged them all together, built their house, added a garage, put a pool house on. And I believe they're in a construction phase for a more building over there as well, on lot 102. And then later on, with the development going on behind them, they purchased kind of a crazy piece of land behind them as a buffer. So that way, if anything was built back there that was semi-close to them, it would provide some additional lands behind them. The 3 lots that they originally purchased, so that way they wouldn't be too close to it. But after a little further review, it looks like the improvements for the lands behind them are quite some distance away from them, so they won't have to worry about that. So here this evening, again, with the proposed subdivision waiver, they're looking to take the original lot 101 and then take the lot that was between them, or the lot line that was between 101 and 102, and just extend it back through the additional lands that they acquired. So again, kind of into two odd-shaped pieces, but it was just more so because of the additional lands that they acquired through the buffer. And that new lot to be generated is going to be deeded to their son, Michael, and his wife, and they are going to improve with a new single-family residence.
So, ever merged?
Yes, from my understanding, 101, 102, 103 were merged. They purchased the piece, which is that tax parcel 1312, which is to the rear. And they could have joined only part of it, if I remember when I spoke to Mr. Golden, something with the school. The school line was different, so they wouldn't let them merge the whole thing as one, so it had to stay a separate tax parcel, unfortunately. Something odd like that, where it was all purchased as one, but because the line was there, I don't know if it, the school taxes, if they're like, we don't want to give up our portion of it, or, take a percentage of it, so they kept it separate in the tax rolls. But it's all in one deed, everything was put together, again, they purchased the three, they purchased the additional lands, and then conveyed them all from one to one.
You mentioned a lot line adjustment.
Subdivision maybe?
Oh, yeah, I think that's a, it's a lot line.
I may have, I'm sorry. I'll just-
A lot of lines on here.
That's, the old blue ones were the original ones for the lots 101, 102, and 103. The heavy ones are the externals of the three lots with the additional piece added on. And then the one cutting through it is for the new lot line generated for lot one, which will be theirs, which will be 102, 103, and a piece behind them. And then lot two, as I have labeled anyways, which will be lot 101, plus that kind of hockey stick looking piece behind.
These are on public water and sewer.
Correct.
And the square, that's on lot 103.
Oh, that's in the backyard, just it's a garage that they had like 5-10 years ago.
All the sewer and water run down Naples Drive, or is it coming from somewhere else?
Nope, it goes right down Naples to the next neighbor. Yeah, I think it's Lindsay.
Mark?
Yeah. One or two.
There are 8 houses on that Naples Court cul-de-sac, so we don't approach the magic number 12. Actually, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
That's Gallivan behind there?
Used to be.
Used to be, it's, who was, now I forgot who was, it's the Delta.
Amador.
Yeah.
So we also typically see like a site location map on these
Yeah,
plans.
my apologies, it was kind of a last minute trying to put it all together so I could at least let you guys get your eyes on it this evening. And then I'll add all the adjoiners, names and addresses on there, as well as the key map up in the upper right-hand corner. Left all that room there, but basically dropped them off today so I can be here this evening and we had time.
I think there's enough here to look at and put them on the next agenda.
Andy, do you want to mention?
Right, and just so the board is aware, Kevin, you're correct. It was Gallivan's, Amador, down the slope behind here. And the property that kind of is at the top of the slope, right behind the Murray's property, is subject to a conservation easement as part of that land development district. And that's been recorded, so
I thought there was a utility easement there too, wasn't there?
there's a water
The
line
water line,
Yeah.
yeah.
coming up that will ultimately loop into this and bring the water down as well.
So there's no dead ends.
So there will be no dead ends. It's supposed to also increase pressure here, but basically it'll be a loop system. There is one utility easement up just the water line. This board will remember there was discussion about should we have an access road coming up and connecting
Right.
in? And that was ultimately analyzed and determined not to be necessary. So this area basically to the rear of the Murrays at the top of the slope is all subject to open space conservation easement, subject to the water line utility easement.
Off this property and not.
Off the property, correct. It was my understanding that the Murrays did negotiate with the Galavans that owned the property at the time to acquire title to this buffer, just to make sure they
Just in
own
case.
something that would constitute a buffer. And then on top of that, the town, when acting on the PED, required additional area to be subject to a conservation easement, and that's been recorded.
So that's right, on the consequence, that what's gonna be put in there. There's a lot of units going in, but they're quite a distance away.
There, yeah.
That way, so they did that before the approvals, just to ensure that they did come up near them, at least that they had a larger piece instead of having a out the back. You can see that.
Any other discussion? We'll put you on the agenda for 10:20.
That's all. Good night.
That's the school district line that comes in horizontally on that. It's crazy.
Thank you. That was the reason though, right?
Yes.
Okay, so for prior, I'll update with the joiners, the key map, and then get you 10 fresh copies before that evening, and we'll be good. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Is the minute EAF with it?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The EF and the application should be, I ran 10 copies, but I only gave, I didn't realize I had to have 10 of everybody. So I gave one big application.
Wendy told me,
My bad.
Let's check through this, law there.
Sure.
Make sure we check off all the boxes. So,
Gotcha. Appreciate that. Thank you. Have a good night. Okay.
that's it for new business.
Okay. Any old business? Motion to adjourn?
Does Brunswick Meadows start any excavation back up in there? I haven't heard anything going on.
We'll go over the agenda for next meeting.
Brunswick Acres?
Brunswick Acres, excuse me.
I'm not aware of anything going on the site. They were asked to, if they could remove the wood, which the board did allow to get the wood that was laying down there off of there, but I do not believe that all of the escrows are in place yet.
Are they in a rush to get this?
Clock's ticking.
What's the, there's no, is there expiration? What's the-
Remember, the approach was conditional, final subdivision approval. So there is a time limit on satisfying the conditions, 180 days, with 2 potential 90-day extensions by this board. Presumably, they'll show good faith efforts to move forward and satisfy the conditions so that the board could entertain an extension if needed. But I agree with Chuck. I think the amount of the required escrows is still being worked out. Inspection, oversight amount, as well as bond requirements.
I just expect them to be in there going guns blazing. Probably surprised.
That seemed to be their intent, right?
Yeah.
So on the agenda for our next meeting, we have Olson Development Site Plan after we go to zoning board. And We had some comments about the easements, Atlas renewal rules, special use permit, and site plan,
What choice are it?
Sagebrook Associates, subdivision, Naples, lot line adjustment, waiver of subdivision. Anything else?
I don't believe we had anything held over.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
Thanks, Kevin.
All those in favor?
I do, you bored it to this.
Sorry,
Go for it.
it's not exciting stuff.
No.
I can't make it exciting. I can crack a joke.